There's one piece of paper you can pull up in about 5 minutes that for a great many people over 65 leads straight to a bigger Social Security check. Not a one-time lump sum, not a refund. I'm talking about a heftier check that lands in your account month after month for the rest of your life. And the reason most people never collect that money isn't that they don't qualify for it. It's that nobody ever told them this paper existed or showed them the one specific thing to look for inside it. Because here's the part that matters most, and it's the part almost nobody bothers to explain. Pulling up the paper is not what raises your check. Knowing the exact line to examine once you've got it open, that's what raises your check. Miss that line, and you walk right past money that was yours the entire time. So in this video, I'm going to lay out exactly what this paper is, where to get it, and the precise thing to look for inside it that can put more money in your check every single month. I'm also going to show you the mistakes that quietly shrink millions of checks, who is most likely to have one of those mistakes sitting on their record right now, and the simple form that fixes it. Stay with me all the way to the end, because near the finish, I'm going to give you several more ways to raise your check beyond just correcting an error, and one of them applies to almost everyone watching. This is real money. It's your money, and by the time this video is over, you'll know exactly how to go get it. I'm an estate attorney, and for more than 8 years, I've sat across the table from retirees, going through their finances line by line. And I'll tell you the single most common thing I see: good, hardworking people getting paid less than they earned every month because of a number on a government record that nobody ever checked. They work their whole lives for that benefit, and a quiet error, sometimes decades old, is shaving money off their check, and they have no idea. I'm going to make sure that isn't you. Let me start with what this paper actually is, because once you understand it, everything else falls into place. The paper is your Social Security statement. It's free. It lives inside an online account called My Social Security on the official government website, ssa.gov. If you've never set one up, it takes about 5 minutes. And the moment you log in, your statement is right there waiting for you. Inside that statement is something most people have honestly never looked at in their entire lives: your complete earnings history. Every single year you've ever worked and paid into Social Security, listed out, going all the way back to your very first job as a teenager. Every year with a dollar amount beside it. Now, here's why that history is the key to your check, and I want you to really take this in because it's the foundation of everything. Most people assume Social Security looks at your last few years of work, or just takes some simple average of what you made. That is not how it works. Social Security takes your 35 highest earning years. It adjusts each of those years for inflation. It averages them all together, and it runs that average through a formula to produce your monthly check. So that 35-year average is everything. It's the single most important number in your entire Social Security calculation. Your whole check is built on it. Let me make that real for a second. Imagine one of those 35 years. A year you worked full-time for good money is sitting on the record as a 0, or as half of what you really made. That low number gets averaged in with all the others and drags the whole average down. And since your check is calculated straight off that average, that one bad year quietly lowers every check you will ever receive. It's like one wrong grade dragging down a lifetime grade point average, except this average decides how much money you live on. That's why people who fix even 1 year often see a real jump. They're not getting a bonus. They're finally getting the check they always should have had. And the only place on earth where you can actually see the raw year-by-year data behind that number, the actual figures going back decades, is that statement. Your check is calculated from those numbers, but you never get to see those numbers unless you open this paper and look. The most important financial number in your retirement, built from data you've never been shown and that no one has ever asked you to confirm. So why does simply looking at it lead to a bigger check for so many people? Here's why. Every one of those numbers came from payroll reports your employers submitted over your entire working life. Decades of reports from every job you ever had. And sometimes those reports were wrong. A year where your employer typed in the wrong figure, a year where the amount recorded is far lower than what you actually earned, a year that shows up as a 0 when you know for a fact you were working that whole year. And every one of those mistakes drags your 35-year average down, which means your monthly check, the one you're living on, is smaller than it's supposed to be. And not by a little either. According to the Social Security Administration's own figures, a single year of missing or incorrect earnings can reduce your monthly benefit by roughly $100. Let that sink in. One wrong year, $100 a month. That's $1,200 a year. Gone. And over a 20-year retirement, that one wrong year quietly costs you around $24,000. $24,000 from a single mistake on a single line you never knew was there. And if there are 2 or 3 bad years on your record, you just multiply that number right out. And here's the part that should make you angry, and then make you act. The Social Security Administration does not fix these for you. There's no automatic review. There's no alert. There's no letter in the mail that says, "We think your record might be wrong. You should check it." The data goes in, your check gets calculated off of it, and unless you personally open that statement and compare it against your own memory and your own records, that error just sits there silently for years, shrinking your check the entire time. The money does not come looking for you. You have to go find it. Now, you might be wondering, am I actually someone who might have one of these errors? So let me tell you exactly who is most likely to have money sitting on their record right now. Because if you hear yourself in this list, you need to go check this week. First, anyone who worked for a small business, especially back in the 1980s and 1990s. Back then, a lot of payroll was done by hand by an owner with a paper ledger, and honest mistakes were far more common than they are today. If you spent years working for a small shop, a local company, a family business, your record is exactly the kind that tends to have errors. Second, anyone who was ever self-employed. Freelancers, contractors, anyone who ran their own business and paid self-employment tax. The way those earnings get reported leaves a lot of room for a year to be recorded at the wrong amount, or to not show up at all. If you worked for yourself at any point, even for a few years, check those years closely. Third, anyone who changed jobs frequently. Every single time you started at a new employer, that was another chance for someone in a payroll office to mistype your number or your social security number and send your earnings to the wrong place. The more jobs you held over your life, the more chances there were for something to go wrong. And fourth, and this one is huge and it's missed constantly, women who changed their last name after getting married or after a divorce, and the name was never updated correctly with Social Security. Here's what happens. If the name your employer reported doesn't match the name on file with Social Security, those earnings can fail to attach to your record at all. They sit somewhere in the system, credited to no one. Years of real work, real money you earned, simply not counted toward your check. If you've changed your name at any point in your life, this is one of the most important things you will ever check. Now, there's one more thing inside that statement that surprises people, and it can be worth a lot. If you have fewer than 35 years of earnings on your record, and many people do because they took time off to raise children or to go back to school or to care for a parent, or they worked a job that wasn't covered by Social Security, then the system does something you need to know about. To get to 35 years, it fills in every one of those empty years with a zero. And those zeros go straight into your average and pull your check down hard. But here's the opportunity. Sometimes those years aren't actually empty. Sometimes you really were working during that period, and the earnings simply weren't recorded correctly. Finding one real year of work that's sitting on your record as a zero and getting it corrected can add $50 to $150 a month to your check. Find 2 or 3, and now you're talking about a meaningful raise for the rest of your life. Let me give you a real picture of what this looks like, because numbers on their own don't always land. Let me tell you about a man I'll call Raymond. Raymond spent 3 years in the late 1990s working for a small construction company. Good years, hard work, solid pay. Decades later, just before he retired, somebody finally told him to pull his Social Security statement and actually read it. And when he did, he noticed something. Those 3 construction years were recorded at roughly 60% of what he'd actually been paid. The owner had done the payroll by hand and submitted the wrong amounts year after year, and Raymond had never known. So he gathered up what old paperwork he had, filed a correction, and his monthly check went up by over $300 every month for the rest of his life. That money had been sitting there unclaimed for nearly 30 years, and the only thing that unlocked it was Raymond finally opening the paper and reading one section. Same Raymond, same work. The only difference was that one afternoon, He looked. Let me tell you about one more person, because her situation is the one I worry about the most, and it may be the most common of all. I'll call her Margaret. Margaret got married young, took her husband's last name, and worked for almost 15 years under that name. Later in life, she divorced, changed her name again, and kept working. She never thought twice about it. Decades later, when she finally pulled her statement, there was a stretch of years in the middle of her career where the earnings were far lower than she remembered, and a couple of years that were nearly blank. What had happened was simple and heartbreaking. During those name changes, some of her earnings had been reported under a name that no longer matched her Social Security record, and that money never attached to her. It had been sitting in the system, credited to no one, for over 20 years. Real work, real paychecks, just floating, uncounted, dragging her check down the whole time. When she brought in her old tax returns and got it corrected, her benefit went up meaningfully for the rest of her life. If you're a woman who has changed your name even once, I'm talking directly to you right now. Go check this. You may be owed more than anyone. Now, fixing an error on your record is the biggest opportunity for a lot of you. But I promised you more than that, because not everyone has an error. So let me give you several other ways that paper, and the moves around it, can raise your check. Because the goal here is simple. Every dollar you earned, you should be getting. The first one applies to almost everyone, and it ties right back to those zeros I told you about. If your record still has 0 years in your top 35, you can replace them. Every additional year you work, even part-time, even later in life, can knock out one of those zeros and replace it with a real number. And because the formula uses your highest 35 years, working one more solid year can bump a 0 or a tiny early career year right out of the calculation and raise your average. For some people, one more year of work is worth far more to their check than they ever realized. Second, when you actually claim matters enormously, and your statement shows you the estimates. If you haven't started your benefit yet, every year you wait past your full retirement age grows your check by roughly 8% a year, all the way until age 70. That's a guaranteed increase you can't get anywhere else. Your statement lays out those numbers so you can see exactly what waiting is worth for you. And third, if you're married, divorced after a long marriage, or widowed, there may be a larger benefit available to you than the one you're collecting on your own record. A spouse may be able to claim up to half of the higher earner's benefit. A widow or widower keeps the larger of the two checks. People leave enormous amounts of money on the table here simply because they assume the check they're getting is the only one they can get. It's worth checking. Every single one of those is a legitimate way to end up with a bigger check. And every one of them starts the same way, by opening that paper and actually understanding what it's telling you. So here's exactly what to do, step by step. Write this down, or just watch it twice. But before the steps, gather anything that shows what you really earned over the years. Old W-2 forms, old tax returns, old pay stubs, even a clear memory of which years you held which job. Pull it into one folder before you sit down. The more you have, the stronger your case. And if there's a box of old financial papers in a closet you've been meaning to throw out, don't throw it out until after you've done this. That box could be worth thousands of dollars to you. Step 1. Go to ssa.gov and create your My Social Security account if you don't already have one. It's free, it's the official government site, and it takes about 5 minutes. Be careful here, by the way. Use only the real ssa.gov. Don't click some ad or some link promising to do this for you. Step 2. Open your statement and find the earnings history section. You'll see a list of every year going back to your first job, with a dollar figure next to each one. Step 3, and this is the part that actually moves the needle. Compare those numbers year by year against your own records. Your old W-2 forms, old tax returns, old pay stubs, anything you've held on to. You're looking for 3 things. Years where the number is clearly lower than what you actually earned, years that show a 0 when you know you were working, and years that are missing from the list entirely. Go slowly and pay the most attention to your highest earning years, because those are the ones that go into your 35-year average. An error in a high year hurts your check far more than an error in a low one. Step 4. If you find something that doesn't match, the form you need is called a Request for Correction of Earnings Record, and it comes straight from Social Security. You submit it along with documentation proving what you actually earned. The best evidence is your old W-2 forms. And here's something most people have no idea about. Even if you threw out your old paperwork years ago, Social Security itself can pull copies of your W-2 forms going all the way back to 1978 for free when the purpose is correcting your record. So a missing shoebox of old tax papers is not an excuse to leave this money behind. Step 5. Be patient but persistent. Social Security typically processes these corrections within about 10 to 90 days. Once it goes through, your benefit is recalculated, and the higher amount starts showing up in your check going forward. Now, there's a 3-year window for correcting recent errors easily, but don't let that scare you off an old one. Mistakes from 10, 20, even 30 years ago can still be corrected with the right documentation. Don't ever assume that because something happened a long time ago, it's too late to fix. If you have the proof, it's worth filing. Now, I know some of you are listening to all this and thinking, I'm not good with computers. I wouldn't even know how to make an account on a website. I hear you. And I don't want that to be the thing that costs you thousands of dollars. So here's what you do. You don't have to do this alone. And you don't have to do it online at all. But you can. Subscribe and turn on the bell so the next one finds you.